Hello and welcome back to WebcastNews, and I don't really have much of an intro to say, so let's just get straight into it. And firstly is a quick update to a story I spoke about in my last video on Thursday, which involves David Cameron and the European Union. Now, for most of the information on this, you can go back and check the last video I did. I'll put a link to that in the description down below where I speak about it in more detail. But in very basic terms, David Cameron met up with European Union representatives in Belgium to try and gain a referendum for the UK. And in very simple, I don't know much about politics terms, he was pretty successful with it and has got the referendum for the UK, which is scheduled to take place on June 23rd, aka basically we vote whether we want to stay in the European Union or not. The question has already been set that will be asked to the voters, which is anybody over the age of 18, and that question is, should the United Kingdom remain a member of the European Union or leave the European Union? I wonder how much they paid someone to actually word that question correctly, because I think I could have worded that in about 5 seconds. So obviously a vote to leave the European Union results in the UK leaving the European Union. Pretty simple. But it's a bit different if we decide to stay in the European Union, because during the talks that happened last week between Cameron and EU representatives, some compromises were met for if we were to stay in the European Union. A package of changes was agreed on last week, which included child benefits for immigrant workers being recalculated, a limit on work benefits for EU migrants in their first 4 years of work in the country, and also the fact that we just get to keep the pound sterling, because why would we change now? We've had it forever. And there are other changes, but I have linked an article in the description down below which you can go and check out if you want to see the rest of those changes that would come in if we vote to stay in the EU. So Cameron has finally done something that seems fairly positive for the UK, but it still doesn't actually stop refugees coming from countries like Syria or limit them at all, because, well, Syria's not in the EU and none of the countries in that area are in the EU. So I don't actually know whether this affects the migrants and refugees going through European countries. I don't know if it affects the amount that can actually come over here. I don't know if it affects the amount of money we'd give them. If you do actually know that, make sure you put it in the comment section down below so you can give me a bit of information here. And then moving on to what is seemingly, by my little typey scripty stuff, is going to be the main story of this video, and it is the disturbingness of former footballer Adam Johnson. Adam Johnson is a former England international, but last year on March 2nd he was arrested on suspicion of sexual activity with a minor, that being a 15-year-old girl. And just for a fact to throw out there, Adam Johnson is 28. And there have been some very strange turns in this case. Initially, obviously Johnson is arrested. He claims that the girl told him that she was 16 and that she'd lied to him. And in April 2015, Adam Johnson is charged with 3 counts of sexual activity with a minor, all taking place one night in January 2015. And he's also charged with 1 count of grooming, which took place from December 2014 to February 2015. In June 2015, Adam Johnson goes to Durham Crown Court and denies all charges. But then this month at Bradford Crown Court, Adam Johnson pleaded guilty to 1 charge of sexual activity with a minor and the 1 charge of grooming. However, he denied 2 other counts of sexual activity with a minor. But during all of this, it's come out that the 15-year-old girl is a fan of Sunderland Football Club, the team that Adam Johnson was playing for at the time, and that Johnson was her favourite player. Seemingly the start of all of this is she gets him to autograph something, she asks for his number, and he gives her his number, which is actually a very rare act from a footballer, but it turns out that's because he was sexually attracted to her. Johnson also admitted that he knew that she was 15 years old and that he had lied, trying to somehow protect other people, like his girlfriend. Yes, she's still with him through all of this, which I admire in a way, but it also seems a bit stupid. The day after Johnson admitted 2 of the charges against him, Sunderland Football Club sacked him as a player, so he is no longer at a club. However, one of the weirdest parts to come out of this was that in part of the investigation, they found that Adam Johnson had Googled the age of consent just a few days after the supposed, I still say supposed because it's still not been proven yet, act of sexual activity with the 15-year-old girl. However, during this trial at Bradford Crown Court, Johnson explained why he had Googled the age of consent, saying that it was during a conversation with other Sunderland players, and because of the different nationalities of the players, they were finding out the age of consent in different countries. Yeah, and I wonder who brought that conversation up. Another thing to throw on top of this, apparently the sexual activity happened in Adam Johnson's car in a parking lot. Classy footballers, hey? But overall, it's a pretty disgusting story and not a very comfortable one to talk about at all. But obviously the case is still going because they're trying to prove or disprove the 2 other counts against Adam Johnson that he has denied. Then in space travel news, because I don't talk about that very often, because again, I don't know a lot about space travel, although someone who does is Philip Lubin, a scientist who works for NASA, and he has come up with a system in which he believes that we could be able to travel to Mars in just 3 days, with a theory proposed by him involving something called photonic propulsion. This involves the use of particles of light and the energy that they harvest by bouncing it off an object to then propel another object. But in basic terms, it means a giant laser with light pointing from the Earth, which just sounds cool. But this is something that could happen, because Lubin said that with these lasers, I just want to call them lasers now because it sounds better, pointing at a giant reflective object stuck to a robotic manned craft, could see that robotic craft actually get to Mars in just 3 days. And a manned spacecraft by humans would take around about a month, but that's still a massive cut down on the current 5 months that it takes. And this isn't just for Mars, it is seen for future space travel, and especially to the nearest stars to the Earth. The nearest one being Alpha Centauri, which is 4 light years away. With current technology, that would take 30,000 years for us to just get to the star, which is not even worth trying to wrap your head around, really. And although they didn't actually say how long they think it would take to travel that 4 light years to Alpha Centauri, it would still be a lot quicker. So, it's exciting news. This was all spoken about as part of NASA 360, and there is a video in which he goes through all of this, and that video is on the article that I've linked in the description down below. So if you do want to check out that video, make sure you go and check out the article. And just something random that's popped into my head. These articles, I just find them. That's why there's lots of different sites that I use, because I will just search and see what gives the best information. So it's not like I am trying to promote any of these sites or anything. It's just what seems to give the best information on a certain story. And finally, just to finish the video off, a teaser trailer for Disney's new film Pete's Dragon was released a couple of days ago, so I'll put a link in the description to that trailer so you can go and check that out if you haven't already seen it. And the release date for the film is August 12th of this year. And so that is it for today's video. If you have liked it, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button as well if you do like the content that I'm making on here. Also, if you have any thoughts on any of the stories that I've spoken about today, make sure you put those in the comment section down below. And as always, thanks for watching.